Favoritism is happening once again right before our very eyes, and the groups who have the power to stop it and or do something about it are simply choosing not to. This includes Anonymous itself. Now, y'all may be wondering, what the hell are you talking about? Let me explain. So, if you haven't seen my short from the other day, essentially, black people are having a much more difficult time in leaving Ukraine than their white counterparts. In fact, it went as far as when they were trying to board a train, and an individual on that train essentially said, "No blacks allowed." That's what happened. And there's videos about it. And there are people talking about it. Yet nothing is really being done to solve it. Everyone is essentially pointing fingers at one another. And that's it. Nothing else is being done. Nothing. And the craziest thing to me is, when you have a group like Anonymous, who, as far as I know, it's all about justice, and who are also for the rights of the people and all that jazz, you would think that they would at least mention it. But, as far as I'm aware of, that isn't the case. Instead, they're focused on two white groups killing each other, and while this is happening, they decide to choose one group over the other, completely ignoring the other group who needs help, aka black people. Now, I have a difficult time wrapping my head around this. What's happening now is white supremacy being sown once again in dire situations. That shows you that no matter what is happening, no matter what is being done to those involved in white supremacy, or rather, when there's a whole fucking invasion happening, white supremacy will still choose to rear its ugly head, even if there's currently a war being fought in their country. They will still choose their fellow lighter-skinned brothers and sisters over black ones. They still have time to do that. They still take time to discriminate. And, of course, the mainstream media is definitely not talking about it. And, like I said before, Anonymous isn't talking about it, which makes me wonder why. Like, why aren't they talking about it? They're so focused in trying to help Ukraine that they're completely ignoring the other people who are struggling at this moment, who are trying to leave it. You would think that they are all about helping the little man, right? You would think that if this is happening, they would make sure that it's at least being addressed, or it's at least being spoken of, or something like that. Hell, if they would have talked about it, I would have been like, well, at least they did that. I mean, it's not enough. Don't get me wrong, but at least they acknowledge it. But no, they're not doing that. They're not acknowledging it whatsoever. Instead, they're focused on sitting at home and typing in their little computers, fucking up Russia, cyberly. I don't even think that's a word. But they're so focused on the cyber war that's going on that they don't even have time to even address the racism that's happening inside country they're defending. Like, the country that they're defending is being openly racist. And they're not saying shit about it. Not a word is being spoken on their end about it. Nothing. Not a word uttered. I don't care what the excuse is. To me, that obviously means racism. I really do believe that at this point, bro, they're just racist. Like, they're clearly some white supremacist assholes who simply choose to help the white man. And let me explain why. 2020, right? George Floyd died. What did Anonymous do? What did they do? Play some music over the police radio stations, hack the police department database, and expose a few thousand cops. Something like that. Is that it? Is that it? What did they do when Breonna Taylor died? What did they do when Eric Garner died? Like, what happened there? I mean, yes, they did something about it, but fast forward to what's happening now, and it seems like when two groups who are white are choosing to fight among themselves, they're suddenly up in atoms. Like, all of a sudden, they got time to help out. But when black women and children are dying in America every fucking day, they sit around and do nothing. Nothing. They're choosing to do nothing now by not even mentioning what's happening in Ukraine at this very moment. I mean, sure, some of them talked about George Floyd. Some of them pointed out how they were obviously against that type of injustice. But that's it. They ain't try to help. They ain't try to tackle the government, or they ain't try to spread them. They did what they did in 2020 was somewhat smaller compared to what they were doing now. It really was. And I failed to understand why. I failed to understand it. I mean, yes, there's a whole invasion, right? I get that. I understand that. And the Ukrainian people need help with that invasion. Okay. But explain to me why you are not touching on the topics of racism in Ukraine that's happening right this second as we speak. Explain to me how you simply choose to ignore it altogether. Explain to me that. But when black people die from police brutality, nothing happens. Nothing. Nothing happens. They condone it and that's it. They don't try to enforce how fucked up it truly is. They don't try to point out the inequality in terms of economics between a white person and a black person. They don't do any of that shit. They just condone and do a few hacks here and there and call it a day.